So, with us to discuss these issues, we have Biljana Borzan, member of the European Parliament and Rapporteur on Empowering Consumers for the Green Transition. We have William Neale, Circular Economy Advisor for the European Commission, specifically the Environment Department. We have Paolo Falchioni, Director General of APLIA, which is the Home Appliance Association for Europe. And we have Els Brugman, Head of Policy and Enforcement for Testachat, which is the Belgian consumer organization. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. Biljana, let's start with you. We talked about some of these policy developments at the beginning, and the European Parliament is currently discussing a few initiatives that cover this area. And just this morning, there was this important vote on the file Empowering Consumers for the Green Transition, which you are leading. So tell us, what's the latest policy news, and what do you envision as wins for consumers?
Thank you very much, and first of all, good morning to everybody. I'm really happy to be with you here today, and first of all, I will have to apologize because it's a very important day for me today because, as you already heard, we had a vote session today in a committee, and it was a huge victory because only one vote, one MEP was against. So you can imagine my phone is already on fire because journalists are calling, they want statements and comments from my side, and you know how this, what they say, what's not in media, it didn't happen. So it's important to communicate all those great things that we do. Let me say one comment on this title, to bin or not to bin. That is the question, but the answer from producer side and from consumer side is totally opposite. Because you mentioned this 3.5 billion euros that consumers could save. But this means if they save that money, it means that 3.5 billion euros for industry less. So the answer is totally different from different perspectives. So let me say a few things that we voted in this report today. I will just share with you three main points: premature obsolescence, mandatory label on durability, and strong repair provisions. There are many interesting and important things in this file, but I chose these three main topics to discuss today, or to present today. So on premature obsolescence, somebody said in the introduction that we are not sure is it objective or not, but you know, people notice that products that they buy today last much shorter than products that, for example, our parents used to buy, or washing machines or TVs or whatever. So it's at least suspicious that today products are not working after 2 or 3 years, just when guarantee expires. So we managed to address certain premature obsolescence practices explicitly in the blacklists of unfair commercial practices. In regards to the Commission proposal, we introduced the outright ban of premature obsolescence practices, and not only a ban of misinforming consumers about them. Also, we have in this report a new point on general prohibition of premature obsolescence practices in order to capture any practices that do not fall under very specific points already listed in the proposal. Also, you know that all our, not all, but many of our directives intervene. So we have a eco-design directive, and it should also be explicitly prohibited to market a product which is not compliant with the requirements of Eco-Design Directive. And it shall be prohibited explicitly not to fix a structural problem with a product that leads to its early failure within a reasonable time after it became known, and continue to sell it. I would just like to remind you on Nintendo Switch controller situation. So on mandatory label durability, you know, one of our major goals here was to give to consumer an information. Informed consumer is a consumer who will make a better choice for them, for their wallets, and also for the environment. So we secured the introduction of mandatory label that will cover a legal guarantee, which is, as you know, 2 years in the European Union, and its voluntary extension in the form of commercial guarantee of durability. So on the product will be marked, will be a label 2+1 or 2+2, and it will be possible. So it means it will be possible for a consumer to make a sustainable choice, and also to for producers to distinguish themselves if they, of course, can guarantee a longer durability of a product. I think that we don't have to explain to anybody that consumers prefer more durable products, and that they are even ready to pay a little bit more if they are sure that the product will last longer. Sometimes producers explain why they always produce new products, is that the reason is that consumers always want something that is new, and the old product is out of fashion or something like that. And I can understand that. For example, if it comes to shoes or clothes, or maybe mobile phones. But I'm totally convinced that nobody buys washing machine because there is a new fashionable product on the market. So consumers want to be informed, and this mandatory label is one of the information that they want. So we will give them through this directive or changes of our directives. Then on repair provisions, more than 70% of consumers want to repair their product, but you know that they are very often unable to do that because of the price of spare parts, or they are unable to reach repair shops. For example, I know that there was data on Germany, that in Germany in 1 year, it was a few years ago, but I'm sure that the situation didn't improve in meantime. 13% of repair shops were closed in 1 year. So it means that nobody is focused on repair because we use this model: buy, use, and discard. So I think that we should change a clock a little bit to the past, even though, you know, as a politician, you always have to look at the future. But in this case, I think that the future is much brighter if we start to act responsible today as we were a few decades ago. That's why I said that we should a little bit reverse time. So it was very important for me as a rapporteur to ensure that consumer gets an information on the affordability and availability of necessary repair parts, reserve parts, and to ensure that repair information and instructions are available, and that the consumer is informed on repair restrictions. This is particularly important considering repair score in the pipeline and will not be on actually products for some time. So, therefore, we ensured a strong repair provisions and bans for practices that discourage repairs, such as marketing of a good that does not allow repair in accordance with legal requirements, omitting to inform the consumer about the availability of spare parts and other repair restrictions. We also regulated practices like marketing of a good that requires replacing the consumables earlier than necessary. I'm sure that majority of you have this experience with, for example, printers, when they show that there is no ink anymore, but it's actually not correct information. So this annoying practice is also going to be finally banned. Of course, I have to say, I'm sure that you all know the procedure in the Parliament. Now we voted in IMCO committee, and of course, still we have ahead of us votes in a plenary, and then we have negotiations in a trilogue. So, of course, it's a long way, but I'm sure that this great result this morning, with only one vote against, is something that is showing the atmosphere in the Parliament. And I'm sure that today, even though maybe this model with use, buy and throw away is easy one, but I'm totally convinced that now in a Parliament and also in industry, the time has come to that everybody realizes that we have to do something, that this is unsustainable the way that we are acting today. And of course, my goal is, I always look from consumers' perspective because it's my political view, but of course my goal is not to destroy industry, but to make a partner of them so that we could, let's say, build a brighter future together. This is the short presentation from my side. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Biljana. Now, another piece of legislation that's come up already today is the eco-design framework. We've already heard that people are placing a lot of hope in that it can change some of these realities that we live with products. William, negotiations on the eco-design framework are happening right now. Can you tell us a bit more about how the negotiations are going and also what the Commission is expecting in terms of how the proposal is going to work once it's adopted?
Well, thanks very much, and good morning, everybody. Yeah, I mean, let me just first of all say congratulations to Olaf and the team working on Prompt, because I think that this kind of information is really gold for many of the initiatives which are now going through, and that there are quite a few of them. Eco-design for sustainable products regulation being one of them. Product durability and repairability is really central to circularity. If you think of it, I mean, you have all seen thousands of times the usual logo of the three arrows going around, the sort of logo of circularity, production, consumption and waste, and the presumption from that is that if it goes around the full circle, then it's circular, then everything is fine. What that logo misses is the time aspect. What we need to do is make them go more slowly round. And my definition of circular economy is about value retention. It's retaining value in the economy of assets, of products, and so on. Once something becomes waste, it's lost most of that value. So it is really important for circularity that we keep that value, that we make products last longer, and also that we use them more intensively, that we share them, so we get more functionality out of them whilst they're still being used. Now, eco-design, the eco-design for sustainable product regulation is quite revolutionary in environmental policy terms, in that we are not talking about punishing polluters, which we've been doing for many decades in legislation. We have also had things like the eco-label, the EU eco-label and green public procurement, which is sort of rewarding the best in class. But the eco-design approach is really about harnessing the collective power of 450 million consumers in Europe to keep the worst stuff off the market, to keep the stuff that breaks, that isn't reliable, and so on. So what the eco-design for sustainable product regulation does is take the already proven eco-design approach. So we know that the eco-design directive has been existing for a while, but really just focusing on energy related products and focusing on their energy performance in the use phase. We know that it's been highly effective. I was quoting figures earlier on about saving 220 euros per household per year, just on the basis of those requirements in eco-design. And Dimitri told me earlier on that that's probably a vast underestimation, and particularly with energy prices now. But we know that it works. We know that even 220 euros per year is, I think, 330 terawatt hours per year, which is the equivalent of all the wind generation in Europe. So, I mean, it's very consequential. So we know that that works. What we've done with the regulation, the proposed regulation, which is now with the co-deciders, is to expand the scope to virtually all products, apart from food and feed, basically, and to enlarge the criteria to cover a large realm of circularity things, so durability, repairability, etc. And that's in, if you want to look at it, it's in Article 6 of the regulation. So I think that what has been useful in the prompt approach, I mean, the most important outtake for me is, I think it says in the brochure that you have, small tweaks have a big impact. And that is important because I think by making design requirements in the eco-design regulation, physical requirements on products to put them on the European market, we're not trying to say that bureaucrats should design products. What we're saying is that there are probably a few tweaks that could have a massive impact, and that's really where we need to make the pay our attention. The example of washing machines was given, but that, just bearings and electronics are responsible for the vast majority of product failures. Now, if you're able to make requirements for those two things, that they should be easily removable, that they should be replaceable, that the codes for failure should be understandable, the impact would be enormous. 92% of European households have a washing machine. If you were to increase the lifetime of a washing machine from 11 to 16 years, so by 5 years, it would be equivalent to taking 700,000 cars off the roads in Europe. So the potential is huge, and of course, new products can be more efficient, but we really have to look at the whole life cycle of those products, including the embodied carbon and so on. And this is really the kind of approach that we're trying to push in the Green Claims Initiative, for example. So you asked about how it's going in negotiations. I mean, I'm not actually very closely involved in the negotiations, but of course the Commission continues to defend its proposal. It seems to have been very generally appreciated and welcomed by both Member States in Council and by the major groups and committees in the Parliament. And we're going through to help sort of explain what we try to do there. Big issue is on a rather general issue of delegated acts versus implementing acts and which ones we should use. But I won't go into details on the specifics of the negotiations. One important thing which we should also remember in relation to the eco-design regulation, though, is that we're not only talking about physical requirements on products. We're also talking about data requirements, and we have what we call the digital product passport. And I think this is also very relevant for durability and repair. So that the digital product passport would actually follow a product through its journey, through its life cycle. We're not just talking about the design phase and putting on the market, we're talking about having a data carrier and a unique identifier on every product. Where that product is rather complex and might go through various transactions and repairs or whatever during its life, that identifier could be on the individual physical item, so serialization. Where it's for other products, it might be done on a batch or a model level. But the possibility of attaching information relevant to product circularity, including things like repairability, throughout its life, and having obligations to give access to that data for people that have a legitimate interest, so repairers, consumers, and so on, is potentially very powerful. If you're talking about access to information on disassembly, on repair, on availability of spares, this kind of thing, that could be an extremely powerful tool. So I think we should also remember that. And another thing, which isn't actually on the theme today, but is very related, is the tackling of the destruction of unsold goods and goods that are returned unused, particularly through distant sales. So I'll maybe stop there. I mean, there are many other things that we could bring into this. I mean, we've talked about right to repair, about empowering consumers in the green transition, eco-design, and so on. But if we look at the sustainable finance taxonomy, we're also looking at how we can promote second-hand sales and reuse and repair. If we look at things like extended producer responsibility, we're also looking at how we can actually make sure that the producers pay for the end-of-life treatment of products. So there are many other things, many other areas where we're very active, and I think that the kind of information that we get from Prompt is extremely useful. I'm very pleased to see that our Joint Research Centre has been involved closely in the project, as they have also been working very much on this sort of repairability scoring. So that data and information coming from Prompt will certainly really be feeding into our future policy considerations. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, William. Paolo, let's turn to you next. You're representing the appliance makers. How do you and your members approach the current legislative discussions? And could you also tell us a little bit about what your members have done already to address some of these premature obsolescence issues?
Indeed, with pleasure. Well, first of all, we tackle the legislative proposal with a lot of optimisms. And it's not by chance that I'm sitting on this side of the table, which is kind of the extra one, the extra seat. And I was hesitating between two soundtracks to introduce my speech. The one is Mission Impossible, because from the look of the presentation, it is as if I am representing an impossible mission. And the other one is actually Lucio Battisti, 1977, Si Viaggiare. It's an Italian singer who in the 70s was telling that a friend with a screwdriver could fix the car and not make it fly, but make it work. So I fully second your view that we have to come back to a different type of mentality with respect to repair of goods. And the positive news that I'm bringing with you today and the optimism that we would like to share with you is because products today are already repairable. It seems like an outstanding statement, but actually we did our homework, and more than 90% of the products that came to our members were actually repaired, not theoretically. They were actually repaired. We heard that the cost of repair could be an issue, and actually that is the issue. And then we went further into understanding, but how is actually the cost of repair structured? We asked again our member, and we found out that 1/3 of the cost is labor, 1/3 of the cost is the spare part cost, 1/3 is the logistic, because not everything is available at all times. So cost of repair definitely it's one of the issue, especially when there is a comparison between the cost of the cost of repair and actually the purchase of a different one. I heard that the e-waste is increasing at 5% every year, which is actually another excellent news. Because if the collection of e-waste and the proper treatment is increasing 5% a year, means that there is a secondary raw material market that could be used to develop new products. Our appliances can become 90%, more than 90% secondary raw material when they reach the e-waste status. And then maybe I cannot be taken as a real example. But my washing machine dates 2003, so it is turning 20. And my fridge is 204, so it's turning 19. And I have to do a lot of internal lobbying in my house to change them. Go change them. No, the rest of the family says no, because they are working, and we do not want to change things that are working. So again, optimism there. And then I also have a lot of other things to say, but I will add only one element, which is on durability. Durability, it's a very important characteristic of products. I agree with you. And actually, testing durability is also something that takes time. We did our homework, and actually testing 1 year of durability of a washing machine takes 1 month. So if we want to test like 10 years, it takes 10 months of continuous running in a lab. So it takes time. So I can understand the 4,600 euro per test on a battery. So if market surveillance is not going to pay, who is going to pay this 400, 6,000 euro of test for a single battery? So durability is a very important concept. It takes time to test, and there is no bearing between the durability in a lab and the durability in the home. Because the durability in a lab means that I use the load, the detergent, it's in the same condition, I clean the filter, I clean the detergent drawer, I do all that is needed. Durability in a home is a completely different matter. So there is an important distinction to be made between the technical durability and the in-house durability. I will conclude with a note about planned obsolescence, which I am happy, again, and that's the optimism with which I'm here, even though on this side of the table in the extra seat, our members do condemn any attempt of deliberately shortening the lifetime of products, all of them, since many years. Now, I have a OnePlus and an iPhone, which, by the way, the one tested, that's really a coincidence. I have no cover on the iPhone. I have a cover on the OnePlus. I wonder why. Thank you.
Thanks, Paolo. Els, let's go to you for the consumer's perspective. So what would you say are your key priorities for consumers, particularly in Belgium, when it comes to durable and repairable products? And what have been the wins so far in terms of policy? What are the gaps that exist in terms of policy?
Wow, that's not an easy question when you look at the amazing outcome also from the Prompt project, but I will try to define a few priorities. You see, at Testasha, we very much like empowered consumers that also have the power to improve markets and steer them. That by making it work and putting them in the driving seat, they can also help steer markets towards more sustainability, more durable products. And it really starts from the knowledge that consumers are extremely annoyed about products breaking down too fast. This was one of the main findings of our reporting tool that we launched already back in 2016. It's called Trop vite usé, trash too fast, if you want to translate it in English. And it's also confirmed here in the Prompt project. But if you want consumers to be able to tackle this, they first of all need to have the right information. And secondly, the alternative needs to be there, otherwise there is no choice. So really this means first and foremost that consumers need to know when buying a project how long it will last at minimum. So they can really make an informed buying decision. Today that's not the case. They can look at the price, in the best case they can have a look at quality, but when you add sustainability, it becomes a whole different story, because this could then create a market that competes not only on price, not only on quality, but also on durability. And it can push brands to make it their unique selling position. Honestly, I've always been surprised that not more brands have jumped on this opportunity, jumped on this wagon, because believe me, there's definitely a consumer market for it. It also means that consumers, when they buy a product, they need to know whether it can be repaired. And in Belgium, our government is currently considering a repair index, which is of course good, except that they want to go for a copy-paste of the French system. And we know it has many flaws in it, and these are not being addressed. So it's really good to hear that also at EU level, now progress is being made in that direction. But of course, information alone on durability, on repairability, it is not the blissful panacea. Real choice means that, you know, the sustainable alternative is there and that repair is feasible. So this means that we need eco-design, design to repair, products that are designed to last longer and that can be repaired. So no glued-in batteries anymore, and no smartphones where it takes like 30 minutes of fumbling to get the screen off to be able to repair it. It also means, in my opinion, that we need longer guarantee periods and a reversal burden of proof, because this is the ultimate incentive for creating longer-lasting products. And in Belgium, after decades of battling, we finally have a reversal burden of proof that covers a 2-year legal guarantee period. But honestly, it is just not enough, because it is no coincidence that mysteriously, products tend to break down just after the legal guarantee period. So it should at least cover the expected lifetime, or at least the lifetime that producers and manufacturers are able to indicate on the product. And finally, as a final point I want to raise, we should also make sure that repair is easy and attractive, so it can really compete with, you know, replacing a product. And that isn't the case today. Why? Because consumers don't know how to repair it, where to go through. It's very burdensome. They don't have the spare parts, or spare parts are not available. But most importantly, because it's just too expensive. This is the main barrier. So if you really want to have a right to repair, you really need to tackle this as well.
Biljana, I just want to put one quick question to you before you have to run off. And just, I would like you to respond to Paulo's point about durability in the lab being different from durability at home. As we have this legislation, how do we make sure that the market surveillance, the testing, we've heard that it's quite tricky. So how are lawmakers going to guarantee that we can actually do that testing in a way that makes sense?
Well, you know, you are totally right. When I was working on one different issue in the last term, it was, I'm not sure if everybody is aware of that, that we had the dual quality of products in a single market, that, for example, one producer produces one type A of a product, food or technical good or whatever, and a product with a lower quality for some member states in the European Union, which is unacceptable. It was easy to see in a laboratory if the composition is the same, for example, if it comes to food. With the technical goods, it's much more complicated, because you have to prove things for in years. So it will be challenging. And of course, like today we have data from different kind of surveys that show that products broke down in after 3 years and 2 months. So majority of products. So when you have, if you look at the picture, you have this spike on a second or third year of a product, and then it's again stable. So it means that in the future we will have to have more surveys. It's impossible just to say what happened at home, but the experience from consumers will tell us are we on the right path or not. I'm really sorry that I have to leave, but I would just like to thank you all, and you know I'm always at your disposal. If anybody has any kind of question, you can reach me through my office. And I just want for the end to say that I think that you just jinxed your washing machine. Ask your family if it's
I think, yeah,
working.
We should
Thank
follow
you.
up in
Sorry.
1 month to see if that's still working. William, for sure the Commission has also looked into this issue as we have this legislation. You know, it's one thing to set these goals, to set targets, to set legislative requirements. It's quite another thing to be able to measure this stuff in an effective way. And as we've just heard, measuring durability for technical goods can be quite complicated. So how does the Commission think that we go about this once this legislation is on the books?
Well, I mean, we've already, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we've been working on repairability scoring. The Joint Research Centre published a report in 2018 on, I think, 5 different product groups looking at repairability. And it's very important that we know the reasons for failure, which is coming out of this project, the PROMPT project, in order to know what are going to be the likely things that need to be repaired. And I think Olaf in his presentation also intimated that the French are talking about a durability scoring coming in 2024, just as doing repairability scoring at the European level is useful, maybe durability scoring at European level would be useful in the future. But I think part of one potentially interesting way in which you could have more dynamic information on why products fail and how long they last would be the digital product passport. Not only could you have information to repairers, to consumers, maybe even to consumer organizations about data on the product durability and so on. But if you are able to track and trace a product through its lifetime, you know a bit more about how long it's lasted, when it's been repaired, what has been repaired, and so on. So this kind of information could potentially be built on the digital product passport. Now, digital product passport, as with all parts of eco-design regulation, will be applied on a product group by product group basis. So we'll have delegated acts to actually establish for each product group what are the most appropriate physical requirements for that product, but also data requirements. And everybody needs to be at the table to actually define that, and they will be through our public consultations and impact assessments on those product groups. But I think it would be, for each product group, very important to identify the data that would be essential to understand product durability, why products fail, and in addition to the information on disassembly, on availability of spare parts, on repair services, and so on. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's, I don't know if that's really answering your question, but I do think that we have the possibility in the future of having more dynamic information about products as well as the sort of static technical information.
Paulo, so far, eco-label and eco-design law has focused largely on energy efficiency, because that's a bit easier to measure, right? Now that we're looking at durability and repair, what do you think, which products should be prioritized, either because they're easier to measure for those issues or they're lower hanging fruits? Where do you think the effort should be at first, given that this will be harder to measure than energy efficiency?
Thanks for the question, because it allows me to actually share why eco-design has been so successful so far. Because it is based on measurable parameters on the products itself. So you take a product, you measure the energy efficiency, and it's either in or out. And actually, it was 2007 when, in the other room, in this place, the industry that I represent asked for eco-design. because the previous stage were voluntary agreements, where not all market was forced to follow the same rules. It was us asking that room, March 2007, we need eco-design for all. We got it. It was extremely successful. Half of the energy saving target of 2020 is thanks to eco-design. So it's a very successful measure. Changing that into ESPR has a lot of challenges, because enlarging to all products and enlarging to all parameters, some of the nice and beautiful characteristics of eco-design are lost. First of all, we have to be able to measure anything that is on the product. Second, not necessarily a single measure is good. There could be also a combination of parameters that would actually assess the sustainability of a product. You said rightly, William, durability, reparability leads to circularity. I would add also the sustainability dimension there. And that is why the products that will be leading this new ESPR will be extremely important. And it will be important that the framework legislation would allow the necessary flexibility to industry to lead the way to sustainability by having multiple choices, in a sense. If a product is going to last longer, it's a plus. If a product is using less material, it's a plus. If a product is extremely repairable, it's a plus. But it could be also a combination of those that could allow consumers and industry to define how sustainable a product is. So I think that there is a great potential in the ESPR. We all strive for more sustainable products, but I cannot go as far as identify the washing machine as the first product to test, just because we all use a washing machine.
It sounds like it should be yours, I think, your washing machine. William, you wanted to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, on the, you mentioned, I think, energy labelling and you know, which is already happening. And I think one of the things which will come out of the repairability scoring index that we've been working on is in the near future we'll be trying to do the same for repairability of smartphones through the existing Eco-Design Directive. So we're trying to actually bring in that information to consumers on repairability. And indeed, actually, I have to say that there are 8 product groups which are already covered in terms of repairability under the existing Eco-Design Directive, things like TVs and washing machines, actually. But just on prioritisation, I just wanted to announce the opportunity for everybody to help us decide what our priorities should be with eco-design, in the sense that we have a public consultation which is open until the 12th of May. We cannot decide what our priorities will be whilst the main legislation is going through co-decision, but we're obviously working on, you know, which are the products which have the biggest impact, which are the ones that have the biggest potential to reduce that impact. We've already announced that we intend to work on textiles and batteries, probably amongst the first product groups we look at through the eco-design regulation. But the JRC has produced a sort of preliminary analysis of 19, like a short list of 19 product groups, which is, I think, 12 consumer products or end-use products, and 7 intermediate products. So please do have a look at that and make your views known on what we should be prioritising in the eco-design regulation.
Els, one last second question to you before I open it up to questions from the audience. We could imagine a scenario where we do everything right in terms of legislation. Things are beautifully eco-designed in 10 years, but consumers have learned culturally to treat products as disposable items, that actually we haven't done the cultural shift, we've only done a legal shift, and people are still throwing out their phones because they want the new one, or even maybe their washing machines because they think the new one's going to wash their clothes better. How do we also change the consumer mindset at the same time as the law?
You're absolutely right. we need to take into account also the consumer psyche. It cannot be ignored. We need to look also at ourselves as consumers and as consumer organizations. But like you, actually, I'm quite positive here. I'm an optimist because I do believe that consumers will hold on longer to their products when they are also lasting longer. We have already seen some cautious, careful change here in the direction, into that direction when we were talking about smartphones from the very moment that the batteries were performing better and they were lasting a little bit longer. The other thing why I think there's reason to be optimistic about this is that we know from consumer surveys that consumers are really annoyed by products failing down too fast and that they cannot be repaired. And actually they ask us as a consumer organization to treat this as one of the priorities. And I don't know, maybe it's a sign on the wall or maybe it's not, but after we have influencers that have been trying to seduce consumers as much as possible to buy as many products as possible, well, this has been happening for a while. Now you also see a wave of de-influencing, doing the exact opposite. So you have influencers also showing their followers that some products are basically crap, and you really don't need them in your day-to-day life. I mean, is it a trend here to stay? I really don't know, but at least this is also encouraging. But equally, of course, we will need to continue and inform consumers, educate them, and campaign, not just on a one-shot basis, but every day, every minute of the day. It's continuous communication, and I believe also we as consumer organizations have an important role to play. This is also why, as Testasha, we have joined projects like Prompt and also Share Repair, not only to do the testing and have these amazing takeaways, but also to raise awareness with consumers on this. And this is definitely what we should all continue be doing, tapping on the same nail every time again.
Okay, let's take some questions from the audience. Also, Olaf, if you want to come up and take Biljana's seats, if there's questions specifically on the Prompt project. Yes, so this gentleman here, I think we have mics, or you could just speak loudly.
Yeah. Yeah. So my name is Stefan Rasmus, Deutsche Telekom. I think you got a very good point. It's very important to enable consumers to make an educated decision. We know from our market surveys that the majority of consumers in the past had no clues about the ecological impact of their communication behavior. That was the reason why we teamed up with other European telcos and created eco-rating scheme where we want to inform consumers of the ecological performance of the smartphone so that they can make an educated decision. It's sort of a parallel stream to the Prompt project. But we're not only we're looking also at durability, repairability, but we're also looking on other aspects like climate efficiency and also resource efficiency, because 80% of the ecological impact of the emissions are allotted to the production phase. And we also want to motivate the industry to make the production more eco-friendly by reducing the energy consumption, using more environmental metals, plastics, and bringing that forward. So, yeah.
Thanks. I think we had another person. Yes, so sorry, let's see. This guy with the green shirt, let's go to here. Or it's... And then you.
Ruud Balkenende, the Technical University of Delft. First, maybe a remark on sustainability. Mr. Falciano, considering your washing machine, you really should buy a new one. Because both energy consumption and water consumption exceed far what is currently possible. But further, I would say that it is relatively easy to determine repairability based on the design of a product. It's far harder to do so with durability. So we can provide guidance to manufacturers how to improve on these. But when it comes to regulations, it's about compliance. And then you need something that is quite simple. So the single number for energy efficiency, as mentioned by Mr. Falciano, is very useful there. I wonder, and as Bruggeman already mentioned it, why don't you put in regulations far more emphasis on the guarantee period? If you exceed, say, in your guarantee period that you demand something that's slightly more than the average lifetime, you will have a strong driver for industry to implement in design all kinds of things that might be difficult to measure, but that through industry are relatively easy to assess.
Yeah, I think that's
So I'm curious to both the opinion of Mr. Falciano and Mr. Neale on extended warranty periods.
Yeah, we put this to William first. If I'm not mistaken, this is now a national issue. I mean, it varies by country, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is really the area of my colleagues in DG Justice that are dealing with the consumer affairs, and particularly the Unfair Commercial Practice Directive, which is what is being reviewed in the empowering consumers in the green transition. But yeah, I think also in terms of extended liability, we're looking in, if you look at the right to repair proposal that came out last week, we're looking at how we can go beyond what is the existing liability of producers, and also to try to introduce obligations to repair. If you send a product back, that there should be an obligation to repair rather than to replace the product if that is cheaper, and so on. So we are looking to move beyond the sort of minimum requirements in legislation as they exist in the consumer law.
Paulo, I wonder, actually, for the appliance makers, would there be some benefit to having a more harmonized approach here to guarantees across the EU?
Guarantee, it's a very important topic for my members. And it's also important to make a distinction between the legal guarantee and the commercial warranty. The legal guarantee protects consumers from defects, from problems that were there when the product was placed on the market. The commercial guarantee is something offered by manufacturers, by retailers, that is covering under certain terms and conditions an extended period of time. It could be 2 years, 3 years, 10 years. It's really at the discretion of manufacturers. And they are a good way to ensure consumers that the product is going to last for a certain period of time. But there are conditions in the commercial warranties that must be met. So I cannot do whatever I want to the washing machine and still pretend that it continue working. So I think that an important element of all the guarantee that we want to discuss, it is the relationship between the product and the use of the product itself. That is something where we have our own role. The fact that my washing machine is running for 20 years in a row is not by chance. And it doesn't know me, it doesn't know the work that I do. But I do take care of the washing machine, in a sense, you see. So there is a combination of legal and behavioral aspects that are extremely important in the time a product is with me. Another important element, which I would like to add as another data point, it is that in Belgium, 1/3 of the products that are sent to the waste are still working. 1/3. So it's not only a matter of guarantee, the durability and the time it takes for me to divorce from my product. It's also the behavioral aspect that we have to take into account.
Yeah, that cultural shift question. Okay, this gentleman here had a question. It's the green shirt right here.
Thank you. Bram Soenen. I work for a product policy unit in the Belgian Ministry of Environment. And I think Ruud just took away my question. I had about the same remark listening to Paulo said that, okay, repairability, we're already doing it. There's a lot of work going on, but I don't like the durability testing, and I hear it's very difficult. And then the obvious question is, yeah, if you have something like a guarantee, why don't you work with that? So thank you for already answering that. I have another question, so backup question. On the right to repair, there's this, one of the things that's in the proposal is the obligation for manufacturers to actually offer repairs after the period of legal guarantee. I don't know whether maybe they should also include before that, because your product can break accidentally, nothing to do with guarantee anymore, but should also be able to repair it then, I guess. But my question would be maybe more to industry, because one of your members, I think it's even the biggest one, once showed me a PowerPoint presentation where they had this idea of a repair network service rating of a manufacturer, because what is offering a repair? Is it having to send your products off to Bulgaria from Belgium, where there is one repair shop, which is very expensive, where they can do it? Having a call center which is impossible to reach during normal hours that people would call, is it just one repair, or can you very easily claim, look, this is not repairable, because you can design those bearings can be kind of pressed in the drum so they're inaccessible, and then the manufacturer can say, look, it's not made to be repaired, sorry, you will have to buy a new appliance. So there's different levels of offering repairability, and maybe having, will admit, yet another label, but a label of, look, this brand offers this triple star repair service, and their competitor only has a 1-star or a 5-star. I'm just inventing a rating system here.
Paolo, what do you think of that idea?
Yes, there are different provisions being discussed in the Parliament that are fully aligned with our vision of a more functional after-sales market. One, it is a network of professional repairers. There should be possibly at national level, so that as a consumer I would know where to go to easily repair my product. The second is the transparency. So there is a provision that is saying that a consumer should know the full cost of repair before actually the repair is carried out. And that is also something that we value as a positive step forward toward transparency and increasing the repair. But most important of all, what we like a lot, it is the repair being the first in the hierarchy of remedies. So when there is a problem in the legal guarantee, then repair must be the first choice for consumers as a legislation, not a choice. Repair first. No question asked. If we want to be consistent with all that we have been saying so far. We are also going a step further, because if a repair is not possible or it is not economically convenient, then also reconditioned products could be offered to consumers. Same product, reconditioned, before going for a new one. So there are ways in which to be consistent with all that we have been saying today that we definitely favor.
So William, you wanted to comment on this and the possibility of a star rating?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the prioritization of repair is really the approach that we're taking in the right to repair. But also I just wanted to say that we are really trying in this and other things to promote independent repairers. So in the right to repair, we are making sure that there is access to spare parts. We're also proposing a platform for people to find repairers. And I think that, I mean, through eco-design and digital product passport, the idea of having access to information on repairs is really fundamental. And if I can just come back to what was said by the gentleman from BEUC there about information for consumers, I think that, again, the digital product passport will potentially carry immense amounts of information, but this is a TMI, it's too much information for many consumers. And I think that there's an important role for consumers organizations and other NGOs and potentially private companies to process the kind of information which is being made available on products through the digital product passport, using algorithms or whatever, to actually direct people towards the kind of products which would be most suitable for them in terms of their own priorities in terms of sustainability and so on. So I think there will be that, using that data effectively, not that the consumers directly use it, but that it is processed, will be very useful. And I think that this is one of the things which is coming out of the discussions with the Parliament and the Council now. You know, how can we actually not just have scan a product and get information directly as a consumer, but actually have access to maybe anonymized information on a wider basis for comparing and so on, for analyzing whether it's durability or whatever. So,
Els, would you support this idea? Do you also worry it would be TMI for consumers?
I agree. It's the product passport will be a game changer, at least also for us. It will make our lives as a consumer organization, as a testing organization, way easier, because there will be lots of information there that otherwise we only would be able to access with testing, and we know how difficult that is. That's also why, in the meanwhile, Testachat and some other consumer organizations have joined a project which is called Surthread. And it's mainly, feeding a digital platform where consumers can feed the platform with technical details on the products, but also their experiences with repair and with products failing down too fast. So it's basically a bit of a digital product passport avant la lettre. So just to say that it's very interesting to us. I do agree. I mean, the digital product passport has so much information. I mean, it's not all for consumers. Consumers need to be able to make a decision when buying on the spot, so they need to have clear, concise information. And I just maybe wanted to revert back to what was also said before, like adding information on scoring of a brand. How do they tackle repairs? Do they do it well or not? All in all, it will be a lot of information for consumers to process. I mean, they need to know about the durability, the repairability, yes, of course, but then also having, to look at the brand, okay, I have repairability, but this one is a little bit better than the others. I mean, we are very much in favor of empowering consumers, but that also means that they need to have a trustworthy framework in place, and that's a framework where some aspects are just guaranteed by legislation.
So we have time for one more quick question. This woman all the way in the back has been very patient. Yes, there.
Thank you very much. Very quickly, I'm Christina from Right to Repair Europe. It's a coalition for the right to repair. Very quick question. Do you know what part pairing or part serialization is? Software serialization. Please raise your hand if you know. Just so that I know whether I should do a TikTok dance about this, because everybody seems to know about this, but the European institutions. It's never in the legislative proposals. So why, if we know what it is, and if we know that it absolutely kills independent repairs and right to repair, why is it never in the right to repair proposal, in empowering consumers for the green transition, and in ESPR? And maybe Paolo also wants to say something about that.
There's definitely a question for William, for being pointed at.
Well, I think it's more of a question for it's a shame that our MEP has left, because now that the proposal is adopted, it's really down to you to argue that case with it. I don't know. I wasn't actually involved in writing the proposal, so.
Paolo, do you?
No, the fact that I know what it is, it doesn't mean that I know that it is used. I know what it is as a concept. But I didn't have to repair my iPhone, so I don't know actually whether that is something that we should actually tackle in the legislation or not. To me, what is important it is that there are aspects edging on consumer safety that we must take into account, that are not relevant for an iPhone, but are relevant for a washing machine. So not everybody can do everything. And that is why, to us, it's so important that we actually produced one book, another one is coming. One book, it's a training book for professionals on how to repair products. So we are not just speaking, we are actually walking the talk. And the second book is coming is for DIY repair on products, because we know that there are a lot of things that could be done by consumers, a lot of things that must be done by professional repairers.
We do have to leave it there because we have the lunch about to start, but the good news is you can talk about this issue over some food outside. So before we wrap up, first of all, a round of applause for our panelists for some great introductions. And I'm now going to turn it back over to Dimitri for some concluding remarks.
Thank you, Dave. And maybe to conclude, I'd first like to pick up on Lucio Battisti's song, you know, like a great reference, Paolo. We certainly don't want our cars to fly, right? We just want them to work as long as possible, and ideally to be repairable only with a screwdriver, right? And that's really what we are trying to achieve here. I think you mentioned ESPR and the review of eco-design, saying it's a complex task, and it's true, it's not easy, it's a revolution. William also said that we're expanding to all more products and more sustainability criteria. But I want to insist on one thing that Olaf has said, that often premature obsolescence boils down to a handful of factors, right? So we're not asking the Commission to look into each and every design detail of product or to tell your members how they should design the entirety of their products. We're asking them to tackle these low-hanging fruits, to look at this to make the situation better. Thanks from my side to the speakers, to the European Commission for making this project possible as well, to the project partners, especially Olaf and Isabel, who was coordinating the policy work on this. And maybe as a last takeaway, I'd like also to pick up, William, you said this info is gold for you, which I'm happy to hear, which we're all very happy to hear. And so I would say that this event was only a snapshot into, you know, like the wealth of information that the Prompt project is providing. So I would invite all of you to come and speak to us, to all the project partners, and we would be more than happy to help bring forward this ambitious policy agenda to make more durable products the norm. Voilà, thank you very much.